This happened to me back when I was still a kid and living with my parents. I must have been around 10 or 11 years old, and we lived in a small town in Washington state. Because our town was small, there weren't really all that many kids around for me to play with. The population skewed mostly older. To combat my boredom, I would spend a lot of my time exploring the woods that were nearby to my little house. My mom didn't really care as long as I was back before dark, and my dad was working way too hard to even think about anything else. Anyway, so there was this spot deep in the woods that I loved to go to. It was this isolated cabin that was all run down and dilapidated. It had no windows, the wood was all rotting, and the door had fallen off years ago, etc. I like to pretend that I was a rugged woodsman that was hunting beasts in the wilderness and slaying them with my bare hands for food. I was a bored, lame kid, what can I say? Not far away from this cabin, within eyeline, there were these holes that were dug pretty deep into the dirt. I'm not sure why or even when, being there as long as I can remember, but they would often fill up with water when it rained and remain there for a while, and the water would become stagnant and smell really bad. Anyway, so I was pretty sure I was the only one who knew about this place. I had never seen anyone nearby. I had never noticed any footprints or broken twigs or smushed grass. I never noticed anyone had been in the cabin. But this one day, as I was coming up on the cabin, I noticed that there was a man already there. I shit my pants and ducked into some brush where I could still see the man from. Luckily for me, he was facing away from me, so I don't think he spotted me. And the first thing that I noticed was that he was completely naked. He was just standing there and staring off into the distance. He looked really, really pale. It was pretty cold around this time of year, and I was wondering how he had not died from the cold. No way he could have been naked for that long. He had these marks all down his back, just patches of red that stood out against the pale skin with these thick, raised lines going across his skin. And in some places, they were scabbed over, and one of them looked like it was recently an open wound. The more I watched, the more I noticed that he was swaying back and forth ever so slightly, like he could not keep his balance and stand completely still. Then out of nowhere, he starts humming really loudly and chanting some weird shit. It caught me off guard, and I fell backwards into the brush, and I'm not sure how he did not hear me. I could not make out what he was chanting, but it kept going on and on. Then he started to do this weird dance in a circle. I'm not sure how to describe it. He would raise his hands to the air while chanting and do this little dance in a circle. I could see that there was something on the ground that he was circling around. He'd drawn some kind of a circle with something black, and there was a symbol in the middle of it. It wasn't a pentagram though, that's something I definitely remember. If it was a pentagram, I definitely would have known. This continued on for a little while, before he got down into a prone position in the middle of the circle. When he did this, the guy started licking the ground, I'm not kidding. He was licking the ground, and to move around the circle, he was doing some cross between the worm and humping the ground. Once he was done with this, he walked away into the cabin and came out carrying something. He was holding a rabbit in his hands that was very clearly already dead. He brought it into the circle and cut it by its neck and let the blood just spill out onto him. He just let it roll down his body. And after he did that, he just closed his eyes and just stood there for what seemed like a really long period of time. Then, out of nowhere, he opened up his eyes and got really, really angry, and he started screaming and started punching the ground. He was shouting, "You asshole, you asshole, I need this, you promised." And he was almost in tears by the end. He had beaten the ground so hard that his knuckles were bleeding. Once he was done sobbing, I saw him spit this big glob of spit onto the ground, into the circle that he had drawn. I'm not sure what happened here, but quicker than my eyes could comprehend, this guy was on fire all of a sudden, literally on fire. I saw the flame spark up near his shoulders, and it only took a few seconds before he was almost completely engulfed. He was screaming in pain and tried to pull off his shirt, but it was so hot it took him a few attempts. But it did not help, because it wasn't his shirt that was ablaze. It was his entire body underneath the shirt. At this point, the man is screaming and shouting, "Please, please, you promised," in a way I had never heard before. I had never heard such pure agony. And at this point, being a little kid, I am just frozen to the spot. I guess I didn't move because I didn't want him to know that I was there and for him to hurt me or run towards me while he was on fire. And I guess also I didn't really want to get in trouble for being there. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, but as a kid it did. So, once he pulled off his shirt and realized that wasn't going to work, he just starts running for that stagnant water that I mentioned earlier. It isn't too far away, so he could definitely make it in time. But on the way there, the most bizarre series of events happened. Someone, I'm presuming him because it was never there any other time that I'd been into the forest, he had tied one of those snare traps in a nearby tree. You know those ones that wraps around the rabbit or whatever's leg and pulls them into the air. I guess he forgot it was there in his panic because he tripped it and it lifted his leg into the air slightly and threw him off balance. I watched him go crashing to the ground as the snare snapped from his weight. Then he just starts rolling on the ground back and forth manically. He wasn't even trying to get up to go for the water anymore. He was just rolling and begging for I don't know who to help him. And at the same time, he's using his hands to smack his body to try and put out the flames, but you can tell that it is hurting so badly. I had never seen such a pained facial expression before in my life. And this went on until he just stopped rolling. And then he stopped doing much of anything, really. I couldn't really move once he stopped moving. All I could do was stay in my crouched position, low to the ground, and just keep staring. Because I didn't really know what I just saw. I couldn't really process it. I wanted to go and help him, but the fire just wouldn't stop. Even when he was on the ground and he had died, it just kept going. It didn't show any signs of stopping. I can still remember that horrible smell. It smelled like when my mom burnt dinner because she forgot to turn off the oven, or like a campfire and that really strong smell of smoke, but different. There was this extra smell that I could not work out, but it made me want to vomit. His skin was still burning, and I watched as it charred right in front of me and turned a pitch black color. His eyes were still open throughout all of this, and they were staring in my direction. If he wasn't on fire and I didn't just see him die, I would have thought he was staring at me. It was really creepy. Eventually, I got up and ran home and went straight to my room. I should have told someone, but I felt guilty. I was convinced that I would go to jail because I watched someone die and did not do anything. So I waited, and I did not go back to those woods for a few weeks at least. My mom got really worried about me, which was not like her at all. She asked if I was feeling sick or if something bad happened, but I told her no. I eventually went back into those woods. Looking back now, it was stupid of me not to tell someone. Those woods could have easily burned down, and the fire could have easily spread. I'm not really sure how it didn't in the end. I could still smell that smell once I got deep enough into the woods, even after a few weeks had passed. When I got there, the cabin and everything else was still there. The water in the hole in the ground had completely dried up and was just an empty pit. That symbol was not even visible on the ground anymore, and the entire ground was just a burnt black. The fire had not spread, not even to the cabin that was not far away. It didn't even spread to the trees or anything. The body of the man, it was not there anymore. The body of the guy that I saw burning, all that was left on the ground was a burnt patch of earth. And on this patch of earth, there was some kind of ashy substance. The ash, I shit you not, It wasn't just clumped up into a pile. It was spread into the outline of a person in the outline of this man. You know, like how police use tape to make the outline of a body after a crime. This ash was scattered like that in a vaguely human shape. It made my skin crawl. I did not find anything new or changed in the cabin when I looked. He had not left anything behind. There was nothing left in the empty pit of water either. I stopped playing in those woods after that day. I took to exploring different areas that were well away from there. Still, to this day, I cannot even really explain what happened. Back in the early 2010s, my friend and I had this small paranormal research group. It was nothing professional, just a few kids from a tiny Appalachian town obsessed with local folklore, cryptids, ghost stories, and the unknown. We would spend weekends camping in the mountains, investigating old houses, abandoned mines, and just anything else creepy that we could find. Most of our outings were uneventful, but there was one place that really shook us to the core. There was this abandoned homestead deep in the Appalachian wilderness that we came across. It was this local place near a river valley in Tennessee where I lived. It was just a few miles away from the NC border. It used to be a thriving farm in the late 1800s, but there were weird folk stories about the place. Stories about the youngest boy of the family dying inexplicably. The exact story changes depending on who tells it. Anything from drowning in the river to being gored by a deer. The story usually ends off with a rumor about a spirit still roaming the hollow and making laughing sounds that carry on the wind. A load of old bullshit, really. We were reckless people, thrill seekers if you will, so of course, we wanted to check the place out for ourselves and get our scare on. It was mid-July, late afternoon, when we piled into my old pickup truck, buzzing with excitement. We were convinced that this would be our most epic investigation yet. The drive was long and winding down narrow mountain roads surrounded by dense forests. By the time we parked at the trailhead, sweat was dripping down our heads in buckets. It was so humid, you could feel the thickness of the air just from breathing in. From there, the hike began. The path was barely a path. It was just twisted dirt trails overgrown with briars and wildflowers. There were thick trees pressing in on all sides. Our flashlights barely did anything once the darkness crept in. It got dark way quicker than we expected. The deeper that we went, the heavier the air felt. Our flashlights helped a little, but the beams were not that thick, so even with them, the woods felt unnervingly dark, thicker than the night should be. When we finally broke through the last stand of trees, we entered a clearing where the house once stood. The place was in ruin. The stone foundation was completely cracked and looked to be crumbling in places. There were rusted farming tools scattered everywhere. Trees had taken root through the floorboards and vines wrapped around the broken chimney. The first thing we noticed was how dark it was inside the hollow. The canopy above was so dense it blocked out stars and moonlight, swallowing every glimmer of natural light. Our flashlights barely did anything. Then came the temperature drop. It was nearly 90 degrees outside the hollow, humid and really thick, but as soon as we stepped into the clearing, the air plummeted to near 60. I still remember the chill hitting my skin. And I know that by this point it's a long and tired cliche, but this was when I really got that deep feeling of wrongness, like the place was alive and hostile. I could just sense that something was wrong and that we shouldn't be here. We set up our equipment, cameras, an EVP recorder, a couple of thermometers. We split up slightly into two groups of two. Me and one friend went near the foundation. Two others went wandering toward the old well and what was left of the barn. Walking felt harder than it should have been. The forest was thick with branches and thorny vines, but even when we pushed those aside, I felt like I could feel something tugging at my clothes, and it wasn't the vines. It felt like someone was grabbing my t-shirt for just a second and pulling me back slightly. My heart was pounding the whole way. I told myself it was just nerves. That's when I noticed this moss on the low-hanging tree branch near the well. It was shaped almost like a twisted hanged man, but when I zoomed in on my camera screen, I swear I thought I could make out fingers curled around the branch. Before I could even point out what I was seeing, we all heard this sudden rustling. It was like something moving at lightning speed through the underbrush. Then we saw the thing making the noise very quickly. I saw this black shifting shadow darting between the trees. It didn't move like a person at all. It didn't even look like it was lifting its feet up and down to move. It looked more like they were just a blur, and it was floating along, but incredibly quickly. Quicker than I've ever seen any animal or human move. I could make out its eyes even far away. It had these two glowing red dots that you could not miss. It looked like a red light on something recording, but much brighter. We just started running. I could feel the adrenaline getting stronger, and I felt like I could puke. At one point, my friend who was with me tripped, and he bit the dirt, and he told me it felt like something grabbed his leg. After a little while, we finally made it to the trail. We didn't even stop to catch our breath, but we kept going to the cars, gasping all the way. We had even more bad luck. The batteries on the truck, they were completely dead. That truck was only a few months old. They should not have died already. We tried to call in a tow service, but they refused, and said that they would not be able to call out until sunup. So all we could do was just sit in the truck and wait. I got no sleep that night. After we left, we took a look at those recordings. The photos were filled with these orb-like things, just these glowing spheres that were darting around and flickering. One of them, far off in the distance, was glowing that same red color that we saw. One picture made my heart drop. We had caught a snap of the trees, and in the distance, standing up on one of the branches, I could make something out. It wasn't super clear, but I could definitely see the outline of something tall just standing there, just a pure black figure. Our EVP recorder captured mostly nothing. Lots of rustling and us whispering and losing our minds, but we did capture a couple of seconds of what sounded like a voice whispering something. Just something like, "Go, go, go," for a good 5 seconds. After that night, we basically disbanded the group. We all liked the thrills, but that night was a little too real for all of us. I'm not sure what it is about that place, but maybe Appalachia really is as haunted as they say. Maybe something there really does not want visitors. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I might have been abducted by aliens or had some kind of out-of-body experience. This happened to me when I was a young kid. I was a crazy child, always moving and getting into things. My mom is getting a shower and lets me stay in my room while I wait. She finishes her shower and finds me with the window open and one leg hanging outside. The room was on the second floor. She takes me out of the window, and either that night or the night after, my dad barred the windows because they thought I was going to kill myself. Fast forward a few months. I am asleep in my room. The Bambi credits are rolling because that shit was the best. I wake up to bright lights suddenly behind my closed eyes. My eyes open, and the two windows have an intense white light coming through them. I can see two silhouettes wearing robe-like outfits with high collars that are beckoning me to the window. I don't remember questioning where the bars on the window went. I only remember walking towards the window. At this point, you're probably just thinking, oh, this idiot is just freaked out by a weird dream he had as a kid. And if the story stopped there, I would definitely understand. The next memory I have is me standing in some kind of vessel. These same silhouettes is sitting at weird-looking control panels. My dumbass kid self unaware that this is where they usually bust out the probes. I ask, hey, can I drive? I remember the silhouettes making the motions of laughter with no sound. I am somehow told no, without anything being heard. The next thing I remember, I am looking down, and I am standing either on some kind of screen, or maybe just a panel of glass, but whatever the explanation, I can see the entirety of the roof of my house. I noticed that a tree limb had fallen onto a weird part of our roof and damaged it. Earlier in that week, we had a nasty thunderstorm. The next thing I know, I am waking up in my bed. My parents swear to me up and down They had no idea the roof was damaged until I was telling them at breakfast the next day. I am still not sure what happened, but it drives my lust for paranormal stuff. Here's a rundown of the weirdest stuff that ever happened to me, kinda in chronological order. My mom insists that one day when I was maybe 3 years old, I came to her and said that the man in the red shirt in my room left and was going to bring my dad's work van. She got a call pretty much right after from my dad's office that he would be late because the truck was stuck under a downed power line. In 2nd grade, I remember going to a birthday party at my friend's house and being kinda unnerved that their house looked exactly like a dream I had, even though I had never been to it. I was in 3rd grade the night my grandmother died. I had woken up and for some reason just decided that I should get dressed, even though it was like 2 a.m. I went to my mom's bedroom and she was like, "What are you doing?" She got the phone call from the nursing home like 5 minutes later. I can kinda remember the scene, but the thing I remember most is how compelling the feeling to get dressed was. I am super skeptical about everything except maybe aliens, but if there's anything in my life that makes me believe that maybe there is something else there, it was this night. I was maybe 11 or 12 years old and went to summer camp. 2 of my friends and I had to go to the shower house in the middle of the night. The camp was basically just one giant road with a bunch of sites for each troop that branches off, but the sites were only ever like 100 feet off the road. Anyway, you could only go 2 directions. One way ended at the offices, parking lot, and bathhouses. The other at the swimming lake, which was well lit. I looked at Google Maps a lot, and this trail is maybe only a mile end to end. I swear, we turned the wrong way and walked for a solid hour towards the lake and never reached it. In fact, I remember the night being pitch black and the trail almost glowing red, which was an observation we all made during the time and recalling after. When we finally decided that maybe we took a weird path and maybe we should turn around, we walked for less than 5 minutes in the other direction and we were at the bathhouses. It was just a straight road that we walked on, no curves or anything. We should have had to walk back the hour we walked, plus the 10 minutes it would have taken to the bathhouses if we walked the correct way. And usually, you could see all the campfires from the trail as you walked, but after the first few, we stopped seeing them, even though no matter what direction you went, they basically lined the whole trail. When we got back, our scoutmasters were freaking the hell out because they thought that we were lost, and they were kinda young, and I'm pretty sure these scouts used to hook up with our mom, so they were really concerned they shit the bed. Speaking of shitting the bed, at the same scout camp, a bear shat right next to our tent. Had to have been a huge one. Not really paranormal, but it's interesting to think we slept through a bear like a foot away from our cots. I went camping with one of those friends on the Appalachian Trail since being an adult, and we could see a fire that was a decent way off in the distance, but not like miles away. You could clearly tell it was a fire, but as you looked at it, it looked like it got closer or farther away. Which we were like, that's weird, and didn't think anything of it. Could not find any traces of a pit, or that anyone else was even camping near us the next morning, and we were up with the dawn. One time, at his stepdad's cabin, we turned the lights out entirely to try and look at the stars, and a bar flew directly into my forehead, and it hurt like shit. That's all I can think of right now. This happened to me in Bali. I was visiting some old-ass temple on tour with my family when I was like 12 years old or something. There were lots of statues, ruins, random structures, the works. Garudas and snakes are a common motif, so are lioness creatures. Temple used to be, and probably still is, a place of worship. It was afternoon, around 1 p.m. It was really hot at this time, 90% humidity. We do the touristy thing and take family photos. We are going around and find a spot. My dad moves into position to take a photo, eyes peering through his camera viewer. Awkward family photo. My dad pauses for a bit. "Hey, guys, move away from that ugly statue." "Huh? There's nothing around us." "Move away from that ugly statue, guys. It's blocking the view." We just kinda stare blankly for a few seconds. Finally, he looks away from his camera to talk to us and to tell us to move away. He pauses. Once he takes another look, he looks obviously uncomfortable, and he says, "Where is the statue?" So apparently, through the whole thing, he kept seeing some sort of statue of a deity which blocked us from the camera view. He mentioned something about a lion statue, grinning, with big-ass canines. Pig-related, probably. Once he looked up and realized it was not there, he tried to peer through the camera again, but he claims it does not show. I tried to look through his camera, nothing either. He could have been dicking around, but that was not like him at all. He could also pinpoint exactly where the statue was positioned. Not too spooky, but weird, I guess. I've been looking for somewhere to post my story for a while. I don't really look here mostly, but I need some answers. I was going hiking with my dad and soon-to-be brother-in-law. We are in a pretty remote area near a mountain pass. We start hiking. Our car is the only one parked out there. The route is pretty hard. It's steep and full of rocky areas. It smells like metal from time to time, not sure if related. The same smell as when you smell house keys. We stop to have a snack. The route is around 6 hours long and we're pretty much halfway done. We start walking again once our break is over. This thick fog starts coming down the mountains and descending towards us. We decide to call it quits because we don't want to be one of those stupid hikers that need rescue. We start to hear screams. Not actual screams. It sounds like a mix between a man screaming and a truck horn. I wouldn't really know how to describe it better. We stop and look at each other. My brother-in-law, who is a bit ahead, is looking towards a rock formation about 50 meters behind me. There is a tall man standing there on a rock. He looks like he's all dressed in a brilliant black coat. He is standing like when a goat stands on an almost vertical rock, but it makes no sense in this case. He kinda looks like he doesn't have a neck. He opens his mouth, I think, and I hear that same scream/horn again. We are shocked. We don't know what to make out from this. He screams again, and slowly starts raising his arm, pointing at something on a rock next to him. We get the hell out of there and start coming back. We heard the same noise a few times, sometimes from behind, sometimes from coming right next to us, sometimes in front of us. It might be the sound echoing, but I have the feeling that whatever it is, it's following us at incredible speed, like we're almost sprinting down the mountain, and it sounds like he is outrunning us. We get back to the car in record time. I look back one last time. I can make out a couple of dark shapes moving at the top of the mountain, but I'm not sure if I'm imagining things. It might just be the trees. So, what the hell was that? So, I was driving through eastern Washington on some state roads. There were no rest stops or cities, but I had done the route enough to know that there were these massive dirt areas every 40 miles or so where you could park safely away from the road. I decided to call it a night and closed my blinds and laid down to watch something on my phone. After roughly about an hour, I hear someone try to open the driver's side door. I have not heard any vehicles on the road the whole time I've been parked up, but I get up and peek out the curtains. As I'm looking out into the blackness of the driver's side window, I hear them try the passenger side door. I peek down from the top of the curtain, but I can't see anything, so I start the truck and kick on the lights. I am fairly freaked out at this point, so I'm still not opening the curtains, but peeking through gaps. Nothing. Nobody is standing near either of my doors or parked within sightline. I take a deep breath and close the sleeper curtains too, because for some reason that's going to make things better, right? After laying back down and convincing myself that something blew against the truck and it only sounded like the doors, it was fairly windy outside and there was a lot of flat ground. I hear what sounds like someone trying to pry open the vents on the sleeper. The door handles start clicking again and the truck starts shifting like someone is climbing on top of it. I hit the little alarm button in the sleeper, hoping to spook them off, but it does nothing but add to the noise of the door handles, fingers tapping on the windows and chassis, and the hiss of air coming out of the suspension. Then, suddenly, it all just stops. There is a few moments where I can only hear myself breathing and my heart pounding before I hear another truck approach and then drive by. I spend the next few hours waiting for whatever it was to come back, but it never did. In the morning, I could not find any footprints or damage to my truck, but on every single window on my truck, there were these tiny, human-looking handprints, like a toddler had licked their hand and stuck it to my window over and over.